Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm talking with Jack Lau. Jack is the co-founder of the Alaska Wild Project, co-owner of Double Shovel Cider Company in Anchorage, and also Local Greens Alaska. Is that Local Greens Alaska? Is that the name of that?
Local Greens is the name.
Okay, Local Greens. The website is Local Greens Alaska, and they do hydroponic farming for sustainable local produce, which is pretty sweet. We'll get into that in a little bit. But you and I were just talking just before I hit record about fishing. And that was the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, because you are an avid fisherman. And since I was up there a couple of weeks ago for my honeymoon, good place to start. One of the big observations I made was just the crowds. So as an avid fisherman and definitely someone who likes to get away from people, how do you handle the crowds on the Russian and the Kenai and the Kisilov, or do you just avoid them?
Yeah, no, it's gotten tough for sure. Just the change in volume of fishermen, especially the early season reds on the Kenai. So the Russian and that confluence, it's kind of got daunting. You go down, you take your raft down that upper Kenai section, and it's just, combat for the whole bend around Guardrail Hole, and then just rafts stacked up on all the other beaches and islands. And, it definitely pushes me away from that experience. For me, I think what I do on the Russian that I still enjoy is I really like spot fishing. So if I am fishing reds, I usually wait until it's, six a day, 12 in possession limit. And then I get down there real early in the morning. You get a good night's sleep. Most people seem to like fish late at night. And then what happens, and it's really unfortunate, is that the crowds block off the Russian River. So during the day, the fish that are in the Russian, that are already in the Russian, say at like 7 or 8 in the morning, when the river gets blocked off by people, those are the fish that are going to remain in the river that are fishable for the rest of the day, and they're all running up towards like the falls. And so you got like this little window, but if you get down there at first light, and you're good at spot fishing, those fish have an opportunity where the river's not blocked anymore, and they start hauling their butt up there. And that's the time for me that I really like to spend on the Russian, and then get out of there quick. The campground's nice, like it's family friendly, so I have my kids down there and have fun. But the crowds really, really push me away from wanting to spend more time down. Now the late run has gotten better. We kind of hit this on our other podcast a little bit, but the late run Kenai always used to be the harvest run. So you just compete everywhere on the river for a spot. Well, since dip netting started, it's made that middle stretch like really nice for fly fishing. So for reds, and then once you get your limit, start fishing for some trout. And so I'll take my drift boat in that middle section and actually have like a peaceful day.
Nice. That was one of the things that I noticed about the Russian. It just didn't seem like anybody was fishing it how I would, because the program is a little bit different, but there were people just standing like right in the middle. I thought, well, that's the nice deep slot. Like that's where the fish are going to be traveling up, and you're standing right in the way there. So you can do like the little flossing, the 4-foot cast to do the little, it looks like some sort of fishing Tai Chi move. But I thought, are fish even actually moving up? And if you have a couple of miles of that, like, is anything getting by any of those people?
Yeah. It's funny because you'll get in those banks and you kind of have to do a little coaching. You're like, hey, if you come stand back right next to shore, they're gonna swim right where you're standing, or even like a little bit closer on those inside bends. They don't want to be in the super fast water. Yeah. They kind of want to be right on that edge of current. And if you can coach them, suddenly everyone's catching fish. If not, you'll just kind of be the one standing back and watch fish swim behind people's legs, and they don't even realize it sometimes. It's pretty hilarious.
There's a steelhead spot near Ketchikan that's kind of like that. It's the most widely used area, and it's a pretty small spot where a river dumps into a lake, and the fish will kind of nose up on to the flat, and then that's when you can kind of get them. If you push them back down to the lake, they're going to be gone. And so you kind of like work down to where you want to fish. So, it's that first cast from shore, just make sure, because there's a nice little slot right next to shore. but you have people who will just get right into the water and then walk out 10, 15 feet. They'll get waist deep, but there were fish holding it at shin level or knee level. That's where they were. And you just pushed them all out by splashing in there. But I don't know what it is. It's not really a helpful exercise, but sometimes it's impossible to think about. Do you ever wonder about what the good old days were like? I know up there, it had to be 30 or so years ago before there were tons of people, but there have always been a lot of people who've been attracted to those areas with a lot of fish. Do you ever think about what it was like 30, 40, 50 years ago?
So to me, like the good old days would have been fishing the rainbows, right? And the pictures that some of these guys that are in their 50s have from when they were kids fishing it with their dad and coming out with their dads or moms, coming out with stringers. The rainbows were as big as the reds, and they're keeping the rainbows. And I think that would have been the time that the good old times that I would be daydreaming about, is being able to hook into 28-inch rainbows frequently on the Russian River. It's just unfortunate that they didn't all go back in the river, and then there's a lot of accidental catch stuff happening still with the rainbows there. But yeah, that would have been really cool. I feel like the if you hit it right, we were down there 2 years ago when they increased. I think it was over 100,000 fish came in the Russian, which was huge. I think it was 180, and it was 9 per day, 9 in possession. Wow. Unheard of. Or 18 in possession, unheard of. But my dad and I would go down in the morning, and I have a really fun picture on my Instagram of a morning with 4 of us down there, and just like this massive stringer. That year I didn't have to dip net. We caught all of our fish down there, and enough for my family for the winter. And so I feel like they've done a really good job in managing the fish. That the numbers are good. It just has to do with the blocking off the river. I think if they would somehow like maybe put something in the river that's like, you can't fish past this point into the river, you can fish the whole bank, you can't walk out this far, allow some fish to travel through, then people could spread out more on the river, and it would be a little bit more enjoyable.
Yeah. I really hate to have regulations. I hate being told that I can't fish this area or this stretch or certain days and closures, things like that, because as a resident, I feel, somewhat entitled. But at the same time, if I take that entitled attitude, it's unsustainable, because it's going to be open for everybody at all times, and there's not going to be anything left, which is one of the reasons why, things aren't the way that they used to be. But so you got to have something.
Yeah, with the more pressure that some of these regulations will help future generations and sustainability. I think it's really important. I mean, you see it on like these wild and scenic rivers where they make you bring in the sacks to take out your waste, all your waste, and I think it's important to do that and follow those regs to conserve our areas. It's a bummer we have to do it, but yeah.
So being up there on the road system, you can find some secluded areas if you want. Obviously, you're not going to say names, but are there some areas that you can pick up some fish if you don't want to deal with the crowds?
Yeah, absolutely. I think reds are a little harder, just the type of habitat red salmon need. It's a rare opportunity, and then since they don't hit, you either gotta floss them or basically have to floss them, or get real lucky. Everyone's kind of aware of all the red spots that are on the road system. But for the other species of salmon and trout, you can definitely find secret little honey holes and streams that people drive by every day or don't realize, I can, walk this railroad track to here. Now, a lot of those kind of secret spots that we had as kids, I'll go out there now, and there's definitely other people that have found them. I feel like I can get away from people more trout fishing than anything else, but in silvers too. Silvers is pretty easy to find. Silvers live in about every stream, and they hit you, so you don't need a lot of them. I can usually find some really good spots for them.
So it's widely known/reported that sockeye or reds don't hit flies, don't hit lures. Would you say that that's more fact or myth?
So for the streams that I fish for reds, I'm not having the luck, any strikes. But you see these other guys, like especially that the outlet of Ski Lac. Some of these guides have kind of figured a way to either annoy the fish or entice it to strike in a way, and they're doing that. You can see those drift boats. I have not done that. It looks pretty cool. So for me, I would say that it's more of a fact or pragmatic observation.
Yeah, I would definitely agree that it is a fact, but it's not one of those absolute facts. I was fishing one of my home rivers, and I just had, just going for trout, and it was just a prince nymph that had a hot spot behind the bead, and it was just a red hot spot. And I picked up on more than one occasion. Sockeye had hit that. It's not like, 3 or 4 in a day, but it's, a certain time of year. If you use this, there's a chance that one might hit. And that was kind of cool. But yeah, I would definitely say that it's definitely more of a fact, but it's not impossible. So if you speak in absolutes, actually, here's a question for you. Do you think it's more likely to catch a king salmon on the Kasilof with a fly, like traditional swinging flies, not flossing, or to catch a sockeye with a fly?
Including flossing?
Not including flossing. So you're straight up fly fishing. It's going to hit. You have much bigger water, so many more people. Are you more likely to get a king on the Kasilof or get a sockeye to hit anywhere?
Yeah, I'd say that if we're getting rid of the accidental and flossing, that the kings will hit way before that. I've spent a lot of time fly fishing for kings, and they definitely are aggressive. They'll come after the fly. I would put my money on the king.
I hope that was the case, and I spent some hours on the Kasilof, and man, it just didn't seem. I don't know if the fish were just getting by, but you have to figure out depths and stuff, and it was difficult to tell how deep it was. And so, was I getting down to the fish fast enough? And it was kind of tough. And then you had 30 people not too far below me that were flossing, and then same thing above me. So I found some water that I could kind of fish how I wanted to, but at the spot there wasn't fish. But yeah, it was pretty. I don't know if it was frustrating so much as it was just an exercise in futility, but
I always found that fishing for kings, they're mostly in holding areas. They're not moving a lot unless it's early in the morning or late at night. And in that period, you can start seeing them in some spots that aren't exactly like holding holes. But the rest of the time, they seem to be taking breaks. They seem to take their time up streams. You see it like on the Volcana, where how long it takes them to get up versus some of the other salmon species up to their spawning grounds. But you get into these big holding holes that they're not spawning in. And it's during the day or it's bright weather. They're kind of staying put. Mm-hmm. So I think like as you learn new streams, it's like, okay, well, what's the structure? What's the current like? Is it especially on the Kasilof being that turquoisey color, it's kind of harder to tell what's going on beneath surface. Trying to find those places that they're holding all day. Yeah,
that's the difficult thing. Anytime you go into new water, you can just feel helpless because you can't see it. You don't know it yet. And if there's limited access, you just feel so helpless.
Right.
But
I always like the suggestion I got from someone, I don't know, about 15 years ago. It's like, if you fish new waters, just take the opportunity and do a half day with a guide, learn how to fish the river, ask all the questions to your skill level. And then the next, the afternoon or the next day, now you go fish it right, and you're not wasting any time. And you've learned so much stuff. You bonded with a new person, hopefully. The shared passion, right? Guide and a fellow fisherman. I just kind of took that to heart. And a great example is I grew up fishing the Upper Kenai for rainbows and dollies. And, you kind of only know what you know. And so I went into that going, yeah, there's better fishermen than me, but I know a lot. And then I spent a bunch of trips with Jason from 49 degrees, 45 degree outfitters. And man, he taught me so much stuff. It was kind of like going to engineering school. You learned like what you didn't, how much you really didn't know. And it was like a whole new river to me. So even an experienced fisherman in that area has something to gain from it.
Yeah, that was kind of the plan. We were looking at guides, and we contacted a guide and said, we're looking at, king salmon fishing on the Kasilof. And he said, well, the Kenai should be really good for rainbows. And I thought, well, we want to go king fishing on the Kasilof. And he kind of steered us toward rainbows on the Kenai. And we thought, well, okay, I mean, that's one of the huge things. You want to catch a big Kenai rainbow. So we said, no, so do that. And we figured for the exact same reason, you learn some sort of insight. You're going to pick up on stuff that the guide tells you, but also the things that they don't even know to tell you, but you just kind of observe and you think, oh, dude, that's a huge thing right here. I wouldn't have even known to ask that, but you picked it up. So what I discovered, what Abby and I discovered, that it was probably because the Kasilof was like, no one was fly fishing it. 0 people from boats were fly fishing it. It was all the back trolling. You couldn't use motors. And so we thought, oh, that's probably why either he maybe didn't feel like rowing or didn't want to have 2 people who wanted to fly fish on his boat because he'd get laughed off the river. Or whatever it was, but I thought that's definitely not the program. So it was awesome to catch some really nice rainbows on the Kenai, but then trying to replicate that, there's so little access on the Kenai. We couldn't those spots, and I thought, oh man, that was so much fun, but I don't know how we replicate that. We can't get to where we went, and we can't even it's no good.
Yeah, that middle and lower section, you really need a boat. I mean, you really need the boat for the whole river, but especially those sections. Yeah.
I think that kind of contributed to my helplessness on the Kasilof, because it was the second day and then the third day. And, I hadn't learned anything from day 1 that I could use for day 2. And it just seemed like not a lot of people were catching kings, and I was fly fishing for them, and not even a lot of people in the drift boats seem to be picking up kings. So if you're doing it back trolling, 4 people in a boat and not catching anything, how am I going to get one with a fly? But it was still pretty sweet. So what is your favorite method of fishing?
I prefer fly fishing. With one exception, there's some of these big drift holes I like to run a bait caster through for kings with like a Vibrax, and I kind of let it just barely hum off the bottom. I really enjoy that. But other than that, it's mostly all fly fishing.
And what species?
A mix. Growing up, we used to do a lot of fly fish for kings. Now a lot of these runs have been decimated. A lot of the fisheries that I used to fish went to catch and release only around 2000, and then were completely shut down until this year. And some of those fisheries are back open to catch and release. But these small water systems that, you kind of got to get off the grid a little bit to get there, take a little bit more effort. I really enjoyed them. King rivers that you fish in the evening and you can walk them. So moving down from hole to hole and watching the kings run up through the shallows, and it just there's something about that really excites me. And it's nostalgic, when I get to do it again, because that was what we were kind of dedicated to as kids. And then as I got older, I got more and more into rainbow fishing. Mm-hmm. And size doesn't matter to me. I'd rather go not see anyone on a small creek than catch a monster on the Kenai. Right. It's just all about being there, working the water, being in nature, kind of bonding with that energy. There's something for that. And then, trying to fish outside the bead season, so understanding, okay, what are the nutrients in the water, what's happening, what bugs are out, kicking over rocks, and trying to figure out that outside of the easy run beads only season is what I really enjoy the most. So especially when you get into streamers and the different ways you can work streamers, it's just it's really exciting.
Yeah. Sometimes when I talk about, fly fishing and just not being around people and dry fly fishing for rainbows and cutthroats and whatever, that's so much fun. People kind of see that as, oh, you're too good for spin casting or you're too good for flossing, whatever. That's no, it's just a preferred method. It has nothing to do with, I'm not looking down at the terminal fisheries where you can snag or flossing or anything like that. It's just back trolling. Just my preferred method is this, and that's just what I like to do. And like you said, when you fly fishing alone and you have that rainbow that's just rising, it's just, oh man, you can't.
Yeah.
No, so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, the one of my favorite things to do is run dry flies on the Russian. I feel like a lot of people don't do it. I mean, Prince nymph, you can't go wrong with that there on the Russian. But running dry flies is pretty fun, and it was something where like you grew up here, you're mostly fishing streamers and not a lot of dry flies, and then on at least for trout on these bigger like salmon rivers, and then one day when you wake up to, well, I could fish dry flies here, it just changed the game, because then you get like one of those, just I don't know, more, it's just a different style of fishing, and you get to add that to your armoire and experience something new, and watching them rise is wonderful. And then you doing it somewhere new is great.
Yeah.
After years of fine print contracts and getting ripped off by big wireless providers, if we've learned anything, it's that there's always a catch. So when I first heard that Mint Mobile offers premium wireless starting at just $15 a month, I thought, what's the catch? But after talking to them and using their service, it all made sense. There isn't one. Mint Mobile's secret sauce is that they're the first company to sell wireless service online only. They cut out the cost of retail stores and pass those sweet savings directly to you. For anyone who hates their phone bill, Mint Mobile offers premium wireless for just $15 a month. I was hesitant about having to get a new phone and a new phone number, but with Mint, you can use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and keep your same phone and your same phone number along with all of your existing contacts. Mint Mobile gives you the best rate whether you're buying for one or for a family, and at Mint, families start at 2 lines. All plans come with unlimited talk and text plus high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Switch to Mint Mobile and get premium wireless service starting at just $15 a month. To get your new wireless plan for just $15 a month and to get the plan shipped to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/waypoint. That is mintmobile.com/waypoint. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/waypoint.
It's amazing once you do get that one little success thing and how much more you can dial in and focus. We're Abby and I were fishing the Wind River 2 days ago now, and it was super cloudy, but then the sun came out for a little bit and you could just see the river, and you could see like where a little slot was.
Yeah.
This other little slot. I'm like, okay, I'm going to aim for this slot. And like the second cast, I got the right cast in there, hooked up with a nice fish, and then it ran down a little bit, landed it. And so from that point on, I was like, I have to hit that slot. You make the cast, it didn't go into the slots. Like, okay, no, that was like a non-cast. I wasn't fishing there. I feel good every time I hit that slot. But if you don't know where that slot is, or if you can't see it, you think that everything is helpless, rather than I missed it, I'll get it next time because I know where it has to be. Those little bits of confidence, but just makes such a huge difference.
Yeah, fishing those new rivers that you haven't experienced yet, or like a river that changes a lot of like grade or bottom structure or forest land conditions. If you're on like a float trip, you have to learn how to fish each of those sections as you go, and it's so much fun. Once you have that initial, they're on the inside bend to intercept these small, or why wouldn't they be in the seam there? And then but up in the more chill water, slower water, they're hiding in these seams, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. That's where you would ambush them there, and it's just great figuring it out.
So yeah, you've mentioned drifting a couple times. What type of raft do you have? Do you have raft or do you have boat?
Yeah, so I have a drift boat and I have a raft. You kind of like it's like the Alaska thing. You got to have a drift boat, you got to have a raft, you got to have a paddleboard, you got to have a jet boat, you got to have a Kenai motorboat, you got to have your ocean boat. Just too much stuff. So I have three, I have a paddleboard, but then I have a drift boat, a raft, and an ocean boat. So, I have found that unless I'm streamer fishing, the drift boat performs better, but there's a lot of rivers that drift boat either can't get to, or, it's just the wrong tool for the job. Mm-hmm. I have a D series raft. So it's a 16 footer. But it has the width of a 14 footer. So it's really navigable. And can make it through some really tight rivers. And then I have an 18-foot, also narrower. It's narrow like a 16-footer, like a hybrid Willie drift boat.
Nice.
Yeah. So both of them seem to. So the raft's an Air D series, super solid raft, good Alaska design, where you got the two tubes, so it can take a beating.
For recreational use, do you use mostly the raft? And like, how many rivers per boat? Is it like, if I really want to fish, it's drift boat on these two main rivers, whereas the raft, you can go to a whole bunch more? How does it kind of break down? Because you have access, like we said, with the road system to so many more rivers. So which one do you find yourself using the most?
If I'm doing a day trip, I'll try to take the drift boat. If I'm doing a bigger trip than that, I try to take the raft. That's also the style. I like to keep it light in the drift boat and fish slow. Where like the raft, you can't really control the speed. Mm-hmm. So you're more. You're either using streamers and using the speed of the raft to help your streamer, or you're stopping to fish, where the drift boat you can mostly fish the whole time. A lot of the day trips that I used to do in my drift boat have kind of been taken away because of they were king salmon drift boat trips, and those rivers are now closed to king salmon. Mm-hmm. So the drift boat mostly just hits like the Kasilof and Kenai now. The streams up north that I used to take the drift boat to, at least for kings, are closed. And so I like to fish the kings out of the drift boat, but on those rivers, for trout, I like to walk. So the raft's fine. I just pull the side and walk the river.
Do you ever hunt from the raft?
I haven't. No.
You do a lot of hunting too. It seems that you tend to go up and you do the alpine stuff and the extreme stuff, but no raft for a moose or anything.
So we have a moose camp that has kind of been a tradition since 92. So and I'm the young guy at moose camp, so I can't bail. And not that I would want to anyway. I think if I did do a float hunt, it would be a moose float. We float hunted when I was younger, but as an adult, as a man, I haven't done any. I have set up two, and they're both Brooks Range caribou and maybe sheep, but mostly caribou hunts. And both times we got weathered out, so we weren't able to go. One time a blizzard came in late August, and then the other time the water was too low to get to actually float the river that we wanted to float. And it was a bummer because that river was a wild and scenic river that is one of the best Arctic char rivers, and we had timed it for the Arctic char run, so we were going to be able to shoot caribou, harvest caribou for the family, and catch and release Arctic char fish. And hopefully we do that someday again. I think after that was right before we started double shell. That kind of just doesn't fit into the schedule. I also like to sheep hunt a lot, and I'd like to do a sheep hunt someday where I get flown in, going with a cub, and then get a ram, and then like float out with a pack raft. I just think that just seems cool. Yeah, even if I didn't have to, it would be really fun to like kind of complete it that way. So someday I hope to do that. the place I'm going to go hunt this year might be an opportunity, but I've never walked the creek that is running out of it, and I'm pretty cautious.
Yeah.
I definitely would want to like at least have talked to someone that's floated out or walk it myself before I attempted a pack raft.
Yeah.
You know?
It's crazy that you have like to down south, people can look at you and say, "Oh my gosh, you're such a hardcore Alaskan," but compared to, there's always another level. There's always more levels,
there is.
and it's just that's why I called the podcast.
Yeah, and these solo hunters.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm right there with the mediocre. I mean, there's some of these guys that are solo bow hunting sheep hunters, and then are taking, going out with the pack raft, like sight unseen river. It basically undocumented. You can't find anything about, or what kind. I'm definitely not that guy.
Yeah. That's the cool thing about a lot of that stuff. A lot of people just live a life and they're unencumbered by having any sort of social media following or trying to make any sort of content. It's like that guy's so totally legit, because they're not doing this because they get sponsored. They're doing this because it's like legit.
They love it.
Yeah.
Alaska made them. It breaks you and then makes you if you do it right, I think.
Yeah. So you mentioned double shovel, so that's a good segue over. That was one of the things that I don't necessarily like about ciders and some of the seltzers is that it's super, super sweet. So when Abby and I stopped by and got the tour, and that was awesome. Thanks a lot, by the way. The thing I like about your ciders is that they are like, you have the full gamut. You have a drier, and then you have up to a one that's a little bit more sweet. So kind of how'd you get into the cidering, and then how did you figure out what flavors you wanted and all that?
Yeah. So a little shout out to Jack Lau, who's my brother, and then Galen Jones, who's our other partner. I mean, it was definitely a group effort. It's all three of ours. We're really in this together. We were brewing beer and distilling, just home distilling, and making a little bit of wine, kind of inflammation type issues, illnesses in the family, autoimmune stuff. And the more that we started to adjust like the greater family's diet to an anti-inflammatory diet, the healthier everyone became. And we realized that was the path we wanted to be on as a greater family. So that was at the point we decided to start tinkering around with cider, because we had read a bunch about how clean you can make it, this colonial style dry cider where basically get all the sugars out. And then we also had some other Alaska brethren that had started a cidery down in Washington about the same time. So we had some inspiration from them. And so we just started making it at home and reading, finding this lost art of colonial style ciders. And they were good. They're real dry. And at the time I worked on the slope, and so did my brother, and we'd go to the slope and come back, and our cider stash would just be pillaged by friends and family. It's like, well, shoot, if people are going out of their way to come over and tell us this good and, snagging our stash, it must be this good. So we kind of just like took a risk and started this company. It was kind of just a side project for the start, but the community here really bought in and supported us, and so we kind of just had to go full throttle from the start because of that support, so which was super cool.
Yeah, when you were talking about like walking a river before you raft it, I was thinking back to when you were giving the tour and you were talking about how you bought, like, one of your first tanks was a massive tank. So you were already preparing for growth. That way you didn't have to buy a smaller tank, try to sell it, and then buy the new one to upgrade. Like, you went full tilt in it. which was pretty crazy. Was that did that make you nervous at all? And if you can maybe explain that tank thing that I tried to just explain there.
Yeah, so it was I mean, I think anyone that's starting a business or like taking on something new, you kind of like have to put yourself in like a humbled position and reach out to people that have been in your shoes before. So we reached out to a bunch of different breweries and cideries around the United States, and a lot of the owners or head brewers, cider masters, were willing to talk to us, just authentically, very open about like some of their successes, what worked for them. One of my favorite questions is like, what would you do if you did it again, and what would you change? Something real open-ended like that. And the feedback you got was just great. But one of the major themes, and some of the local folks here local breweries had similar things to say, was design bigger than you're going to need, so you don't have to rebuy all your equipment. And so that's what we did there. We learned how to age wine. So cider's a wine. And so we were confident that, hey, if we had bigger tanks, it's okay if we just age it, just in case like the demand's higher than we anticipate. We have the capacity to, meet the local demand, and don't have to go buy a new tank. So we bought a system that was 32 times bigger than we thought we would need. And then after the first month, we had to buy another tank. So, but we had that designed out ahead of time and thought through that. So it was already in the docket. Hey, this is our contingency if we are too small. If we do need to up our production, our capacity, how can we do that? And it was with this one tank we would be able to do it. And so that was really cool. Going that big. And so what's cool is that those tanks are the right size for our operation, and so we just had to buy more of them. So we never had to replace them. And those two big tanks that we're looking at, those are still part of our arsenal. They're fermenting right now.
Nice. Another thing about the whole process there wasn't just like the engineering of business, but it's also you're taking your engineering background to recapture carbon and use carbon. So can you talk a little bit about the technology that you are using for that to make it more sustainable?
Yeah, I think that part of being in Alaska and going out and getting to use this awesome land is taking care of it. And so I think we bring that same vision onto like how we operate our company. It's like we want double shovel to add value to the earth, not take away. And so to do that as a company that's making something, and we sustainability is the key. So we looked at our process, and we're venting 10 times more CO2 than we need through the fermentation process. It's a byproduct. And so, and that's great CO2. And so luckily, a few other places had built their own systems. We know Alaska Brewery had built theirs, I believe, in the 2000s, but it was their own kind of custom thing that they had to have engineered. And it wasn't something that a small cidery like us had opportunity to go do. But a few years ago, this company called Earthly Labs had purchased some patents for CO2 recovery, and they repurposed it for capturing CO2 from brewing or making cider, fermenting cider. And so, any fermentation really. And so we went and invested in that. It was a pretty big investment, but we thought it was the right thing to do. And so the goal is to basically recapture all the CO2 that we generate, and then use it in our product, and then also use it to grow for local growing operations. So we're going to be using it pretty soon in our farms here on site. And then there's some other farmers that we've contacted that are really interested in using it. And hopefully some other breweries want to use our CO2 too. That way, they're not buying a bottle that of CO2 that was packaged in Seattle, made from a byproduct of hydrocarbons, even though it's food grade, and then sent on a ship, and then finally there's just a big carbon footprint there. And so for us, I think we can help make this, the local community a little bit more sustainable by us capturing the CO2. So we have it up and running right now. It's definitely newer technology, and we're learning how to work with it. We have captured some of our CO2 and are right now engineering some plans to make it more efficient.
That's awesome. It seems like there's a little bit of a push or like a different mindset. And so those are just good ideas. They're not seen as like, tree hugger, whatever sort of ideas. These are like really good ideas that make a lot of sense that we can do, rather than,
that's right,
just, whatever, I'm going to have my diesel truck and let's go shoot caribou with oil. Like these are just good ideas. And it's cool that they're able to be done. And especially in places like Alaska, where you'd think that, well, you can't do that stuff up here because it's Alaska. And so we got to just, make do with our traditional power.
Right. Yep. You're right on. I think that's an important mindset for our generation to really grab onto, this whole sustainability thing. And it's like, how am I impacting the earth, and how can I leave it better than than when I got here? For us, like we're lucky, we're in the opportunity that we have the opportunity here at Double Shovel that we can do that. Our customer base likes that idea and totally bought into it. The other, my co-founders are 100% on board with that mental picture. And so we're going to continue to do that. Then that's like what we did with the farms. Like these farms, we brought these farms on to provide sustainable produce year round in Anchorage. And it's something that we're lacking and that we really think the community needs. And we're going to be the guinea pigs, learning how to do this, learning how to do it cost effectively, learning how to get it into people's homes. I'm not interested in getting it into restaurants as much. I mean, if restaurants want it, they can have it. But the number one goal is to have an opportunity, give every family a affordable opportunity to have fresh greens, lettuce, kale, bok choy, whatever they want, arugula, mustard greens in their homes for dinner or lunch. And I think that's the way the future is try to solve these problems as a community. So we're going to do our part. Hopefully it sets a good example for other people or inspires them is better.
Yeah.
Inspires them to do what they can do, and then suddenly we're in a better place than we were 5 years ago.
Yeah. It's as Alaskans, we can't look at these things and we can't just gloss over. Like we've seen what happens to salmon populations, so we have to wonder and be curious about fishing practices, about spawning habitat, about all that stuff. You just have to. Same thing with, wildlife. So up here, like you can see it's a lot more close. It's not like just some distant thing that you read about online. You see it so much more. And it's easier to be more than one thing. Like you can be a moose hunter who likes to hike and bike and also cares about sustainable food.
Yeah,
you don't have to be like, I think some people, and I think we've seen it with like media coverage, that it looks sometimes like the entire lower 48 is either Trump or Biden. It was like, well, what does this person do? Like you reduce someone to one thing, which is one of the nice things about Alaska is you can be so many different things, and you can see how that fits in with other people, and you can have a much stronger community because, well, we can disagree politically, but we have 6 or 7 other things that we'll do together before we even get to that point. Like we're hunting buddies first, we're fishermen, we can go kayaking, we can do all these things first. And if we want to talk about politics, we can, but we don't have to.
Yep. Yeah. It's not black or white for sure. There's this gray and a lot of other colors that are great.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of biking, I did buy a bike today. Pretty excited about it.
Nice. Yeah. What'd you get?
I got a Giant.
Okay.
And I had somewhat of a limited budget because Abby and I are looking at saving up for a house and things like that. But what is the biking scene like up in Anchorage? I know you guys got a lot of trails and stuff, but talk to me a little bit about biking up there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you kind of have, I'd say like 4 different, maybe 5 different like little sects. So there's the winter biking is amazing now. These apps like for Trail Forks, where it actually they have, you can pull up snow bike trails, and then you can see real time on your phone where you're at in the trail systems. They're like dictated by level of difficulty, but also like if a new trail comes and you're being tracked on the Trail Forks, you set it up so you enable the tracking. Then a couple of people hit that will pop up as like a new trail, which is super, super rad. So there's just tons of the snow biking, the fat tire biking that's really blown up in the last, I don't know, 5 years. 10 years people have been doing it for sure, but last 5 years has really blown up, and I've really gotten into that. Love it. And then you have a lot of like single track around. A lot of that was put into place by the single track enthusiasts, advocates, single track advocates. Anyway, it's a nonprofit group here, and they've done a killer job getting the permitting, doing these trails right, building them so they don't, there's not a negative effect to the local environment because they're in place. And they've put just a bunch of these trails in on the hillside in North Bicentennial, over in Kincaid. And so the level of you have some that you need full suspension bikes, and there's other ones that you can ride your fat tire bike in the summer on, like a hardtail, no front shocks. So you got that style, and then there's a lot of cool kind of bigger, I guess, like treks, where you have these passes. So you have Resurrection Pass from Cooper Landing down to Hope, super rad ride. Johnson Pass. I've ridden Lost Lake before. I don't think people really think of that as a bike ride. And then you have a bunch of these other kind of hiking trails that you can ride on too, like the trail up to Russian Lakes. There's just like endless opportunity for mountain biking. Then they have the downhill stuff. So Alyeska now has downhill park in the summertime, and Hilltop here in Anchorage is just putting theirs in. So I don't know if it'll open this summer or next, but they're working on it right now to have downhill biking available at Hilltop Ski Resort, which is like right in the middle of Anchorage. It's super rad. Great opportunity for kids. And then there's all these like kid programs that are super cool, like Mighty Bikes over in Kincaid, where instead of your kid like playing soccer, if they don't like soccer, they can go sign up to be in Mighty Bikes, and they bike with like bike coaches in their little team, twice a week, or I think it's twice a week. And then there's a mega road biking community. So you go down at the real popular trail, Bird to Gird. It goes through the old highway, to Girdwood on the Turnagain Arm. That's a super cool ride. You ride over into Girdwood, you can go hit the bake shop or go get a beer at Girdwood Brewing, or go hike. If you're hardcore, you could go hike the North Face and then jump on your bike, ride back. And Bird Creek has a really nice campground, or you could go hike Bird Ridge the next day. So just a lot of cool stuff like that. The bike scene has really been popularized over the last like 15 or 20 years. And there's so many bike shops, so many knowledgeable people.
What I noticed primarily when I walked in, just started looking at the bikes, because I have my high school bike. It was an old Trek 800, I think. And then the bike that I bought, right after graduated college, that I took to work sometimes. And just that was an old GT. Just the technology and how things have changed so much, how much lighter they are. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be so much better on the logging roads, because we don't really have a lot of tracks or trails down in Ketchikan. It's mostly just kind of get out on a logging road somewhere, but that's pretty fun. But the technology has changed so much too. And so it was pretty sweet. And with the global everything shortage, I was like, this is an XL bike. I'm going to buy it because who knows when I could get something else.
Yeah. What is your new one, a full suspension or a hardtail? Is it 29er? What'd you get?
It's a hardtail 29.
Okay. Sweet.
So the GT I had was a full suspension, and I don't know, just for the type of riding I did, I didn't feel like I really needed that. I know you can make adjustments on those now so where it feels a lot more, but you don't, more
Lock
like
them out.
yeah. So yeah, but it's pretty nice. We're gonna actually go out in a little bit here. There's some trails back. I'm in Laramie for another couple of weeks. A couple trails behind town. We're gonna go bomb around a little bit, so that'll be fun.
Yeah. Get some pedal time. That'll be awesome. So those like logging roads in Ketchikan, has anyone built single track from those like interconnecting with the logging road, or did you see that a lot of Washington where they use the old logging roads as your entry up, and then you'll have all these dip in points off the logging roads, and then they interconnect back to logging roads so you can do different loops, and it made it easy because half your trail's already installed with the logging road being there.
Yeah, I know some people ride. There's some people who ride. You'll see them on the street or the road bikes, and then some other people kind of mountain biking around. There's an extensive network of trails. It doesn't say that there's no biking. Like, they'd be really good bike trails, but the bikes might degrade the trail quite a bit. And then also could just be an unwritten rule that you don't take a bike on some of those hiking trails. So it's kind of hard to gauge exactly how many people do mountain bike or would want to get involved and do that. So I might, when I get back to town, might kind of test that out a little bit and see. I don't want to step on toes of the hikers and cause a big problem. But yeah, I think there is just a ton of opportunities with those old trails before they get, or even as they start to get grown in with the alders, and you just have a nice little chute. So
Yeah.
that'd be pretty fun to check that out. But yeah, we'll see. So, well, you got anything else, man? I appreciate you taking the time this afternoon. Any closers or thoughts or anything we missed?
No, I think we nailed it. It'd be next time you come up, we should definitely get you out on either the drift boat or the raft. That would be a good day on the river. I'd like to fish, spend a day fishing with you. It'd be fun.
Yeah, that'd be fun. I've done a few floats. Went down part of the Stikine a couple years ago on my Watermaster. Those things are cool because they're so small and maneuverable, yet pretty solid and nice. I haven't, it's the lower part of the Stikine, so there wasn't a whole lot of really fast water, but that thing's pretty fun. But yeah,
Nice.
floats are great.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for hitting me up. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you. Where can people find you and Double Shovel and all your stuff?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So the farms are Local Greens Alaska. That's the Instagram and the website. And the farms are located at Double Shovel Cider Company here in Anchorage. And we're at 502 West 58th. You can follow us on Instagram at Double Shovel Cider Co. And then my personal is AK_Applejack on Instagram. And yeah, anyone wants to follow me or write me about anything, always down to chat.
Cool. And for anybody listening, Ketchikan Double Shovel is available in Ketchikan, so you can go check that out.
Yeah, that was important to make sure that we got into the Southeast. So that's like our mission is to make sure that every Alaskan has the opportunity to drink our cider if they want it. So
yeah, don't skip us over on your way to Seattle.
Yeah. And I guess for those people that are living in the Southeast that are used to the two kind of main flavors, the flagship flavors, the hopped and the Appalachian that get sent out down there. If you come to the tap room when you're in Anchorage, there's a bunch of ciders we don't distribute. So we usually have 10 to 12 ciders on tap, and then 6 to 8 other flavors like pineapple, grapefruit, lavender, forest bittersweet. I could go on and on. A bunch of different sours available in cans or on tap here only. So it's really cool to meet all the cider enthusiasts when they come in and show them what we actually make here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the Appalachian quite a bit, and Abby's a big fan of the sours, so it was nice.
Yeah, cool.
Well, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll catch you later, Jeff.
All right, take care.